Hello, and welcome back to Markers and Monsters. As per usual, I'm your host, Colin, and today we're going to be drawing one of my favorite cryptids, the Mothman. Now, let's get right into it here with a little bit of the drawing stuff, and then we're going to talk about the Mothman, like what the legend or whatever is all about. But for right now, as you can kind of see in the background, I'm doing kind of a flying figure, almost like a Superman-looking guy. His body's in perspective, and he's going to be cruising over some power lines and trees down below. So yeah, he's always a fun subject for me to draw. I like it because you can kind of do the superhero type like physique kind of deal, but you can also leave him very shadowed and blurred out and get those big red eyes going, which is a fun thing about color control. If the colors surrounding if you put a color down like these red eyes that you're seeing here, the colors that surround them are going to determine how like bright and vibrant they get. So we're going to put a lot of darks around him. But yeah, so just have fun, enjoy watching this go, and we'll chit-chat here a bit about the Mothman and what he's all about. So if you don't know, the Mothman is a cryptid. He's kind of like Bigfoot or the Loch Ness Monster. It's a creature that nobody can prove exists or whatever. But the legend, as it were, takes place in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, which is right on the Ohio River. And actually, if you just cross the Ohio River, then you're in the state of Ohio, so right on the West Virginia-Ohio border. And in November of 1966, a couple of people started spying weird things, including what was described as a large man-shaped bird creature. It was like winged, but shaped like a man. And it was initially seen by 5 grave diggers. They were out there one afternoon digging some graves and see this thing kind of fly out of the bushes, and it scares the heck out of them, and they run off. Later, some two young married couples were cruising around in their car out near what's known as the TNT area, where back in the 40s in Point Pleasant, they made dynamite for the war effort. But in that area, they're cruising around, and they see these bright red eyes coming at them out of the darkness, and they speed off in their car, and they later said they were going as fast as they could go, upwards of 100 miles an hour, and this thing was keeping pace with them. And they described it again as like a man-like winged creature flying after them. So other sightings and stuff abounded for about a year, until actually a little more than a year and a month. In December of 1967, the big silver bridge that crosses the Ohio River collapsed, and it killed 46 people in this bridge collapse. They were on doing Christmas shopping or whatever close to Christmas, and sitting on the bridge in traffic, and the bridge collapses. And after that, the Mothman sightings disappear. So it's kind of interesting. Also in the town during that time, there were talks of other strange things, UFO sightings, men in black, all kind of other weird stuff. The Mothman, however, I would say is the most popular and recognizable. I mean, UFOs, that's really interesting, don't get me wrong, but that's kind of like old hat, you know. Nobody else has a Mothman. And it's interesting, too, the Mothman, he was only called that in like a newspaper reporting, and they were talking about, oh, people have seen this thing around, what do they call it? And they called it Mothman, kind of like he was a villain from the 60s Batman TV show. So that's how he got his name. He doesn't really look like a moth or resemble a moth, at least according to eyewitness accounts. Now, one of the interesting features of this is that they say that the Mothman doesn't really have a head. It's just kind of like where his neck and head would be, it's just 2 big red eyes kind of jut out there. So it's not like he has an extra mound for a head, which is always kind of fun to draw, and it gives him an interesting look. Additionally, some interesting facts come out, or facts, I don't know, but people say that the Mothman doesn't need to flap his wings to fly or anything. Like when he's flying around, they say his wings are completely like still. So he's not using it like a normal creature would be to generate lift, like a bird would. So again, pretty interesting. Another interesting thing they say is that his giant glowing red eyes, if you see them, the people that have reported them, later got like burns around their eyes, as if they looked into like something incredibly bright that was emitting radiation or something like that. So it's kind of weird, kind of neat. It's cool to think about, and whether or not the Mothman really exists, or if it was an elaborate hoax that stopped, when the bridge collapsed and killed all these people, and folks in town had more to worry about than perpetrating this myth or whatever. I have no idea. I can't say, but either way, I think it's fascinating. Either way, it's just kind of cool that that's something that exists in our world. That there's this like legend or myth of this really bizarre creature. So now we're getting into the inking phase here, and this is kind of a fun area where you can throw in that comic book style inking, and it's neat too because as much as you want to keep them vaguely humanoid in shape with the anatomy, you can kind of go a little wild with it and draw muscles that don't really exist on a real person. So that's another reason I like to draw him. It's just kind of gives a lot of artistic freedom to do it. But yeah, it's a pretty neat little thing, the Mothman. Now I know every year in Point Pleasant they have the Mothman Festival. I believe that's in September usually, and that's one I've always kind of wanted to get out to just to see and take a look. Like I said, I don't know if this Mothman's out there. I know there are tons of true believers and people that really believe in the Mothman or whatever, and I don't know, man. Who am I to say if he's real or not? I just think it's kind of fascinating and kind of cool. I guess I've always had a thing for cryptids and stuff. Like when I was a wee lad, the X-Files came out, and that kind of was the catalyst into really having an interest in that. Before then, I'd always get books out of the library about like Bigfoot or the Loch Ness Monster or something like that, and I always just thought that was kind of neat. Then the X-Files kind of really brought that into the I don't know, the public consciousness, or it was like socially acceptable to think that's kind of cool stuff. But anyway, so it's kind of neat now that there's a lot of people out there that know what this is, and they're fans too. They think it's kind of cool and wild, and yeah, it's pretty neat. I like it. But yeah, he's coming along nicely here. Like I said, he's a lot of fun to draw. I love doing him like night scenes and kind of having those blue-purple skies in there. If there's one thing I'm not a humongous fan of, it's black skies. I like to add some color, some vibrancy in there, which is a lot of fun. Yeah, so he's shaping up here nicely. Soon we're going to throw in the white highlights. That's going to help pop those eyes out and give just a little bit of emphasis to them. Yeah, very good. Power lines are coming along nicely. Now, one other thing that I kind of find interesting about the whole Mothman deal, he really didn't get popular until in the 70s. John Keel, who was a researcher or whatever, he published his book, The Mothman Prophecies, which was later very loosely adapted into a Richard Gere movie. But that's really when that kind of came out to the forefront. Nobody really heard of this thing, and this creature, as it were, has never been spotted since then anywhere. So he's very unique to that one point in time in that one little town. But it's cool he made such a big impact. A lot of I go to shows, and even kids will come up and be like, "Oh, Mothman!" They know what that is. When I was young, I hadn't really heard of the Mothman. Now with the internet and stuff, and TV shows about the paranormal, he's a lot easier to find. So that's cool. So if you like the Mothman, keep liking him. He's awesome. All right, let's take a look at the scan here, and yeah, he turned out really good. This is, like I said, always a favorite subject. He's a ton of fun to draw, and I hope you enjoyed watching and just chatting about the Mothman. So, as usual, my social media stuff is up on the screen now. Like me on Facebook, shoot me a private message, it's cool, whatever. And if you like these videos, please like, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Tell your friends. And that's it. Alright guys, this was Colin, and I hope you enjoyed the episode. I'll see you on the next episode of Markers and monsters.